Breaking right now, CBS has released secret tapes of Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's interview with Jane Pauley on CBS Sunday mornings. You know, the one that Meghan hated? They're rubbing salt in the wounds after a very bad week for the Duchess of Sussex following that expose in the Hollywood Reporter describing her as a dictator in high heels. Jane Pauley was going for it when she directly asked Meghan about her depression, about her suicide attempt during her time in the royal family. Angela Levin is going to analyse in just one moment, but first let's look at what Meghan had to say.
You were in danger and severely depressed at the time I think you were pregnant with Archie.
That's right.
The wrong time to be severely depressed, if there ever was the right time. But you told the audience that you needed to tell your husband, Harry, because if you didn't, you were afraid you would do it. And yet you were reluctant to tell your husband because you didn't know how he would react. And how did Harry react?
Well, he's a very loving husband, so I'm here. I think, what you're saying to me really also speaks to the courage that these parents that you'll have more time with, do you know what it takes for them to talk about this experience? And how brave they are to talk about this experience for other families and other parents, and to relive that grief, but to do it in such a purpose-driven way to help save other children.
You were...
Wow, Angela Levin. I mean, look, we already knew that Meghan Markle hated this interview. What we didn't know is that Jane Pauley had gone in and asked really specifically again about the actual suicide attempt during her time in the royal family. I don't know about you, but looking at Prince Harry's body language there, he looked furious and so uncomfortable. Like, what on earth are you doing, Meghan, talking about this again, even though it wasn't really her choice, given the question was coming from Jane Pauley, but also such weird timing for CBS to release this now. So anyway, I've got loads of thoughts, but what are yours?
Well, I think Jane is a jolly good interviewer, and she got that out of her. I think Meghan didn't expect it. I think Meghan was going to be, the great creature who could help people out of terrible, I shouldn't mean to say creature really, the great person who could help people out of a terrible experience. But she couldn't do it because she hasn't got a child who died like that. And I think that's makes it very difficult for you to understand it. And the question just knocked her for six, actually. And she gripped Harry's leg, which was a sort of help, should give a bit of security to hold on to it. He would be furious because that's not what they agreed to do. I mean, a lot of people have had that. You get a good interviewer and they pull out of you something you don't want to say, something that is very secret and personal. And you see that she was blinking very, very quickly, one after the other. And she didn't know what to do. She didn't know whether to walk out or just say something. And then she said, in the end, I'm here, But it was a very good interview to try and get her to say something about herself that was so difficult. And a lot of people don't believe what she says had happened. And so you have to jump into a different world and try and explain it.
Well, I don't believe it. I don't believe
terrible.
it. And the thing is, Angela, I think now they don't even believe it themselves. I think they're embarrassed about that Oprah Winfrey interview. They want to pretend almost like it never happened. But you can't erase it from history.
Yes. I don't know about that. I think that they felt that they had to get that off their chest because they'd had such a terrible time. They were terrible victims. And I think they've been completely surprised, especially Meghan, that people didn't take that for granted. Say if you've got a house with fantastic house with sticks-in bathrooms, you do all that stuff, 2 children now, you don't have to moan like that. But she is so determined to win these rows, and she thinks that other people will agree with her because she's so important. She's a global wonder, and whatever she does is right. But a lot of us, and especially as time goes on, more people look back on it and think how disgusting it was to do it. And also
yeah.
with Oprah, that she didn't behave like a really good
No.
interviewer, because she would know how to do that. She just let it ride, just and oh, shocked. She didn't actually ask her any questions that could get to the bottom of
No
that.
pushback whatsoever. No pushback, no details. It was just an opportunity for them to spout lies. And actually, it's interesting. I think Oprah's embarrassed about that interview too, because it really
Yes.
damaged her reputation. Harry wasn't asked anything quite so personal, but there was a new Q&A with him released too. Let's have a look.
We always talk about, in the olden days, if your kids were under your roof, you knew what they were up to. At least they were safe, right? And now they can be in the next door room on a tablet or on a phone and can be going down these rabbit holes. And before you know it, within 24 hours, they could be taking their life. We always talk about.
What did you make of that, Angela?
Well, I think he's just very, very anxious about so many things. I think he's very scared. He's scared about his own life, and therefore he's scared about his children's life. And he's scared about Meghan's life. And I think that that's part of his mental health issues, that he actually needs help with this, and he's not getting it. I don't know how he's been to so many different people, but it seems no one has been able to calm him down. And the reason to say he won't bring the children to London is also part of that. They would be safe, of course they would. I mean, they'd be looked after by the royals and by the police and everything, but he can't trust anything. I think it's in a very difficult state about how they can get through life. And when they're talking to those two young women, that comes out there too, that they will give him hope if they feel that they can do things, because I don't think he feels he's got the hope. I think he finds the whole world is too much for him. That's why one has to be careful how you talk about him and what he's doing.
Because, of course, he has had lots of mental health issues in the past.
Let me say, though, just if I can interrupt you,
Please.
that when he was talking to those girls, he was saying how much, on the Diana Award, he was saying how much she would love it. My mum would be incredibly proud of you guys, the way that you do it, your activism, your compassion, those things that my mum led her life and she believed in it. It's incredible. So thank you. And I just before I came on, an email. I had several this afternoon, but I had this one from Tisha in America. And she says, since when does Harry think he has the right or the brains to speak on behalf of his deceased mother? He is not her voice. How dare he keep using the late Princess Diana in order to garner attention and favor with the American public? I mean, that's pretty hot stuff. And I think that that's their popularity going down, that people feel, how dare he talk about his mother like that? How does he know? And I think none of us know how much our mother, especially if he was 12 when she passed away, he has to be careful about that, because that's also, he needs to tread very delicately, just as much he might talk about his children and Meghan and everybody. And he's also going to be careful about his mother, because I think people still love her and we all remember her so clearly, that he doesn't have the right to say very firmly what he thinks she thinks.
No, I know. And I always just feel so sorry for William in all of that, because they made that deal, didn't they? They made that deal on the 20th anniversary of the death of Princess Diana in 2017. We are not going to keep invoking the name of our mother for publicity. That's it. We move on. And of course, now it's something that Harry does all the time. And as you say, how can he know what his mother would have wanted? And actually, Angela, let me tell you, if there was one thing that his mother would have wanted more than anything in the world, it was for him and William to be reconciled and for him to be there as a support for William, which of course is a way that he's let his mother down.
Yeah. He
Now,
said that very clearly, very, very clearly. That's what she wanted. And for one time, I mean, he told me that he felt that he wanted to be William's right-hand man when he becomes king. The fact to that obviously hasn't worked, but you can't actually say those things. And I think this thing to garner attention and favor is a terrible thing to say about him. But other people said this similarly, and they just don't like it.
no, indeed. Now, look, still lots of ongoing fallout about the aforementioned Hollywood Reporter expose, where Meghan Markle was described as a dictator in high heels, terrifying. Apparently, she makes male staff members cry. This is all in Hollywood. And according to the Daily Mail, the US report claiming Meghan Markle is nicknamed Duchess, Dictator, and a dictator in high heels is by terrified staff came from a source still working for the couple. Now, that is according to the highly respected editor of the Hollywood Reporter. So even though Harry and Meghan have tried to deny it, and their argument, Angela, just in case people haven't heard, is basically, well, how could the actual staff know this? Because, Harry and Meghan work out of Montecito and most of the staff work out of Hollywood. And also because Meghan actually has something they claim in her email signature where she says, don't worry, if I'm emailing you out of office hours, I don't expect a reply. But it's interesting, isn't it? Because the Hollywood Reporter is fighting back on this and they spoke to 12 current or former staff members. So this to me feels like a credible report. And the denial didn't actually cut the mustard.
Well, I mean, I believe they've threatened to take legal action against them, but they're not worried. They're not worried at all. So that means that they feel very strongly. I don't think that they would have the CEO saying something so powerful about them, or Meghan mostly, without going through every possible slipping area. They wouldn't have said that unless he was really, really clear that they're not going to take the magazine to the court and get out millions from it. You don't do it, do you?
No, because imagine, Angela, that would actually, I just do not believe that Meghan would ever consider that, because imagine if the staff members then said, okay, you're going to have to release us from our confidentiality agreements, our non-disclosure agreements, because we want to give evidence.
Yeah, that
or the Hollywood Reporter.
That would go back to before they left the royal family in 2020. If they start doing with some, then there'll be a route out for others, and then it would be just too terrible. I mean, she's used to being fearsome and strong and determined, but actually, if you start getting to a law business like that, it can really crush her to pieces.
Well, it would be disastrous. It would be absolutely disastrous. But I do think the thing that is so sick, Angela, is that Meghan knows when she's making these denials that none of the members of the Sussex Survivors Club can speak publicly, because in the UK, they are subjected to the Official Secrets Act, which means that actually speaking out about what really happened with Meghan could see them sent to jail. And in the US, these Hollywood NDAs are very tightly enforced. So I think it's really bad, because Meghan can say whatever she wants and can make all of these denials however she wants, knowing full well that these staff members are legally unable to speak publicly or put their name on the record to the allegations they've made. And as you have previously revealed on this show, Angela, the Sussex Survivors Club, I mean, it just gets bigger, doesn't it? I mean, you were talking about something like close to 40 staff members actually now had left.
Yeah. The thing is, this is not the only couple that stop people writing about them.
No.
I mean, most of famous people do actually stop people who come to clean or to help them at all levels, they stop them from actually talking about them, and they have to sign these long forms, pages after page after page. I know when I was doing more sort of interviewing for writing rather than talking about it, that I had to sign this, that I wouldn't say that I noticed, there was a leak in the building or something like that. You have to be very careful. And so they're just following what is done. And at the royal family, they also get people not to agree that they won't talk about things. So it's not unusual, but it is still very, very difficult. And when it comes to the fact that there's huge animosity on both sides, then lawyers often can find a way of getting through it somehow.
But first, digestive issues are caused by a potential toxin that's in all of the, quote, healthy foods that scientists have been telling us to eat, with a fraudulent food pyramid for the longest time. And this potential toxin causes digestive issues. According to Dr. Gundry, a world-renowned cardiologist, this is affecting millions of people nationwide. Warning signs include weight gain and fatigue, digestive discomfort and stiff joints, even skin problems. Well, Dr. Gundry explains these side effects can be manipulated and mistaken for normal signs of aging because digestive issues develop usually over a matter of years and sometimes even decades. I can assure you that the damage is probably caused by these health foods, and it's far from normal. The good news is you can easily help fix the problem from your own home. It's very simple. You just have to know which foods are actually healthy and which contain this hidden potential toxin. So you can go find this yourself at gutcleanseprotocol.com/outspoken. That's gutcleanseprotocol.com/outspoken. I've put the link in our show notes on YouTube and Rumble too. Because after years of research, Dr. Gundry has decided to release an informative video to the public, free and uninterrupted, showcasing exactly which foods you need to avoid. Go find that video at gutcleanseprotocol.com/outspoken or click on the link in the description below. But now, back to the show. In other royal news this week, Angela, Catherine has returned to work. Was this quicker than you expected?
Is this what, sorry?
Was this earlier than you expected her to be back at work?
Yes and no. I mean, we saw her come out and we saw her talking in that wonderful video. So there was energy there. It wasn't just, I need to sit down and say this. It would take quite a lot of energy to get that going. And I think that she is anxious to speak about the thing that she most cares about, and that's babies and children, and how to get them in, the right position in the world and with their families, and so they can grow into decent adults. And a lot of the problems of people is from their childhood, and I think she wanted to do that. It was very near her. It was she didn't have to travel far or no distance at all. They sat down very nicely and they talked, and I think that was the first trial of how she could manage. But I don't think we're going to see a great deal of her. We're not going to see her racing or doing any sport or anything like that. She's going to look after herself because she wants to be careful, and you need to be at this moment because it'll take a long time for her to get over it. And I think that she wants to also give as much love and attention she can to the children. So if, and I hope that absolutely doesn't happen, something happens to her, she's not well for a long time, that the children will remember for the joyfulness and the encouragement and the love that she gave them. And I think that anybody who criticizes that should be ashamed of themselves.
Very good point. Very good point. Now, as for William, Angela, Prince William, I know we should be talking about his homelessness project, which is why he went to Scotland this week. However, everyone, Angela, is swooning absolutely swooning over William's beard. And I have to say, it really suits him at a time where, look, I'm not being unfair because Harry was the one who raised it himself in his book. And I guess at a time where you could say Harry's losing his looks and losing his hair, William is having a bit of a renaissance thanks to this beard. I know you're not as much of a fan of it, though, are you?
No, I don't think it suits him particularly, but I quite understand that everybody does. I mean, there's a sort of naughtiness there that is very attractive for some people. I mean, I think it's also a bit too stubby for me, but
I like it.
Yeah, well, you've got a bit stubbies too.
Yes, I do. I do indeed.
Yes, that's what you like. Look, it's fine. I think he's a lovely man, and I think he's behaved so brilliantly and taken such a heavy burden with great ease, and looking after his father, taking the position of his father, adoring husband and father for his own children. And I wouldn't want to criticize him at all about anything. So if he wants to keep the beard, please do. Don't bother about me on that one.
Okay. Well, I'm going to put another thorny one to you then, Angela. Queen Camilla, you're obviously her biographer too. And I mean, look, I don't have a big problem with it, but she's wearing jeans quite a lot. And a lot of traditionalists are saying, is it really appropriate for the Queen of England and much more to be wearing jeans? Now, I think this was the book launch of her son's
the Braemar Literary Festival for the launch of her son's Tom's new cookery book.
Oh, there she is. There are the jeans.
Yes. Cooking and the Crown, Royal Recipes from Queen Victoria to King Charles III. Yes. I don't think it's right quite. And I was very pleased to learn that an evening when there was a function that she did change into something that looked lovely and appropriate. But I think she likes, I mean, before she got very, very involved with the Prince Charles then, that's how she dressed every day. She was always with a sloppy jumper. That isn't a sloppy jumper. That's quite neat and smart. And jeans. And that's where she feels very comfortable. And during COVID, that's how she dressed a lot. But I still feel that it takes away some dignity. And I think that somehow it should be more ordinary, as much as ordinary as you like. But I think those blue jeans aren't quite right for such a woman like her. Yeah, I think it's inappropriate.
Very bad week for the Yorks, Angela. This is as a result of the new Amazon Prime series, A Very Royal Scandal. So this is yet again looking at Prince Andrew's interview with Emily Maitlis. She is the BBC interviewer. This was the interview that effectively ended his royal career. Now, this version of the show, Angela, is based on Emily Maitlis's book. So it's her version of the story. I have to say, they've taken loads of poetic license, loads of things in this are just not true at all. But fundamentally, it makes Andrew look terrible, doesn't it? That's what it's designed to do, to make him look even worse than he did before. But we've both watched this. Did you like it, the show, or what did you think of it?
No. Well, I thought, oh, for goodness sake, it's so boring. I don't want to see Emily Maitlis be in the limelight. I think that Ruth Wilson is a jolly good actress and very beautiful, but I don't think she captured Maitlis either.
It was weird. Her voice was weird.
Yes, her voice was very weird. It was look down in the throat, but it also was. But it was also, she's very soft. You know, she looks loving. Her face is very, amenable. Whereas Emily is tough.
Yes,
she's gone through with the BBC.
Off his old boots.
And she's tough about things, and I don't think she works together. And what's sort of silly, girly thing was that the producer
Oh, Sam
Sam.
McAllister, yes,
She did the one before that called Scoop,
on
and
Netflix.
that's a lot about her and not much about Mateless. And Mateless didn't like that, so she now wants to make it more about her and less about Sam McAllister. So we have to be, well, you obviously don't have to watch it, but we go through the whole thing again and how excited she was and how good she was, and running with bare feet into the palace because she was so late. But nobody can do that, I've discovered, because it's all full
Rubbish.
of rocks.
Rubbish. Yeah. No one has a bigger ego in the industry than Emily Maitlis, and this is just an Emily Maitlis ego project. And it's like, how many times do we have to hear her talk about this interview? Which, by the way, she didn't even get the interview herself. I mean, it was all procured by Sam McAllister, and she was handed it on her lap. So yeah, I wasn't a big fan either, if I'm completely honest. But there has been.
So we've seen it so many times, haven't we? We know how it was. We know how badly he behaved. We know that he actually fell short of understanding how this could absolutely ruin him. Whereas Beatrice, his daughter, did and said, don't do it, but he didn't listen. And then she was very, very upset, and she offered to give up her wedding because she felt no one would come because he'd behaved so badly. And the one thing was that he never apologized. And that was the key to people's response as well. Very important word. I'm so sorry this happened. But he didn't. He thought he'd done a marvelous job. He told his mother, the Queen, afterwards that it went brilliantly.
Yes.
And then he offered to take them all around Buckingham Palace to show them, what it was like, which they were delighted to do. But they couldn't quite understand why he was so thrilled with them that he did that. He didn't actually understand how terrible he sounded. And I think.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go on.
Well, no, I was just going to say, because of course a lot of the drama is set within the grounds of Royal Lodge on the Windsor estate, and of course that is the 30-room mansion that the Queen Mother used to occupy, which King Charles is really wanting Andrew out of. He doesn't think he needs it. He doesn't deserve it. He's offered to put him up in Frogmore Cottage instead. But this week, Angela, we learned that Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York, Fergie, is not going to move out of Royal Lodge either. What's going on there?
Well, she bought, with help from her daughters, it was very nice of them, a £4 million sort of flat, and it only has 2 bedrooms. And it was empty for a long time. That varies between 1 year and 2 years. And she's lent it out now and getting a very good sum of money. I think it's 10,000, I'm not sure. And she can't sell it unless the girls agree that she can, which means that they're cautious about how she spends money and wants to keep it safe. But obviously that's not big enough for Andrew. And I understand that if you've come from a 30-room place, you probably don't want to be in a 2-bedroom place. But she's going to stay with him, and they get on very well there. And I think one of the main things is, A, that it's very expensive, although that shouldn't bother the king. But secondly, that the building is collapsing, that's leaking all over the place. It looks very shabby, and it's in a terrible condition. And I think they need to move out for that practical reason, not necessarily nastiness and not necessarily trying to make their lives difficult, but it's in a very, very bad state, and it's a great big mansion, and it needs actually a lot of builders in there to pay for it to look in it decently now.
And Angela, just finally, Fergie's fashion, raising eyebrows.
Yes, well, she's wearing very similar clothes to Catherine, and where Catherine looks wonderful on them because she's so thin, Fergie does not. I mean, she can look nice in the things that she wears, but if you try and copy someone in a red dress that's tied up and other things that don't suit you. I mean, people don't need to copy people. You need to really try and do something that fits you. Can I just tell you one other thing
Oh,
that's
yes,
sort of
please.
very new? That is that Canada has said that they don't want Meghan at their next Invictus Games in 2025.
Really?
Yes, they don't want her. Harry has to come on his own. They don't like it because they demand too much. She demands too much.
True.
This is Canadian authorities. This is not just any bit in the newspaper. That she takes the limelight off the people who've been in the military. They're not get the same attention as they should, and they don't like the way she's dressed. I think this goes, which actually completely shocked me, in Germany when she marched or did a sort of Dior sort of march in very, very short shorts in front of quite a long line of people who had been part of the games there. And she was doing a sort of sexy dun 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 dun, and they were walking behind her. And I think that really finished it because it was so vulgar. And she doesn't know anything about the army or do anything. And she gave the speeches. And I remember the first one she did, she said, "I'm sorry, I'm 3 days late. I had to give my 2 babies milkshakes." And you think, oh, help. It's not been quite as bad. But I think they don't like it. I've had a lot of letters from people in Canada saying, "Will you please do something about this? We don't want to doing it." But I have no power over that, I'm afraid. But they have decided that they don't want to. I mean, she might pretend that she's not well, or she's going somewhere else, or doing something. And if the two are going in separate ways, we don't know what's going to happen at the end of that.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please do subscribe if you want lots more clips and interviews like that. Plus, if you want to watch our totally uncensored after show, then visit www.outspoken.live.